again.
Okay.
And the joke is, what's the difference between a butthole and a refrigerator?
Yeah.
And it's the fridge don't fart when you pull the meat out. It's
Eat my fucking ass, bitch.
yeah. What do you got there? Like, is that in your microphone or
It's on my soundboard.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that is pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's cool, huh?
Yeah.
I mean, it's stupid. I don't know what my practical use would be. I guess if I was doing an audio drama where somebody was like testifying in a documentary,
Mm-hmm.
you know, it might be used for that. Yeah.
So, Drew ain't here, we're going through some turmoil. Ain't the right word. Things are gonna change around here because I mean, I reckon I don't know why I'd have any problem with us sharing the news. It's going to be self-evident soon enough.
Right.
Anyway, Drew is moving away from Los Angeles, which is where our studio is, and we were just of the opinion. And in fact, he's moving today. Corey was out yesterday. We'll get to that in a minute. Drew can't record today, and tomorrow is when we release the episode, so we couldn't wait for him. But he's moving today, and he's moving away from Los Angeles, and we thought it would be weird and not hitting and dumb to have me sit in the studio alone with both Corey and Drew doing the Zordon thing. And
Would
I
be
think we
dumb.
were all three in agreement on that. Which means we're now going back to the COVID era style of the WellRED podcast, i.e., it's going to be fully remote unless I get a LA based comic to be a guest or something. Then we can still have the studio available to us. So that's the deal from here on out. My background and surroundings will change soon too. I'm still in the same studio I've had for the past 6 years or whatever, where we did our POA episodes and where I do skews and all that stuff. But this is the only part of my old house that I still use. I ride my bike over here every day to use this studio and then ride back to my new house, which is where my new studio will be. It's not ready yet, though. So a lot of changes, a lot of stuff
Nothing for
going
me,
on.
though. I'm the same.
I know. You just been hitting.
Yeah,
I've had an insane week plus.
I
Mostly
felt bad for both of y'all.
mostly not hitting stuff. And then Drew, too, is moving across the country and all this shit. And it's like, what's going on with you, Joe? He's like, I'm at the Masters drunk. Fucking rules.
Yeah. Dude, speaking of
My
Drew,
life hit so hard. I was in Helen, Georgia for 3 years, gained 10 pounds off just sausages and schnitzel. And, you know, it's like, yeah. I spent the weekend going to 2 separate funerals. And it's like, yeah, well, I was killing them sausages. I'll tell you that much. Fucking.
I sure was. Just by the way, just so you know, had we not, and I talked to Thompson about this because I didn't want to ask you for funeral, situations because you were busy. I talked to Thompson because I was gonna come up for the funeral. It just happened to be the day we were heading back from Helen. So I'm sorry if I've seemed like in your face. Look at these schnitzels. I felt very bad.
Yeah, like I knew obviously. It would be
By the way, I
insane
haven't
of
been
me.
sending these to just Trae. Like,
I
it's
know.
been in our
Well,
group
yeah,
message, and that's different.
It would be insane of me to be like, he should cancel his family vacation and his Masters trip, which you've never been to the Masters before, had you?
Yeah, twice actually.
Oh, you have? Okay.
I've still never been to like an actual playing round. I've only been to practice rounds. This was my first Monday.
Wait a minute. What? So what's going on right now?
They have the practice rounds on Monday and Tuesday, like of Masters week. It's a whole thing. Like they have the practice round Monday and Tuesday, and then Wednesday they have the par 3 contest, which is on a separate course but still at Augusta, and then Thursday the tournament starts. Now I've always gone on Tuesdays, which hit for me, and I found out why Tuesday's better. It's because I went Monday this year. Well, a lot of the big names in the tournament played the Valspar Championship this past weekend, meaning that they played on Sunday, and therefore they weren't at the Masters yet. But it was still a lot of fun. But speaking of the Masters and Drew, because I want to say this while we were talking about Drew moving and stuff, the dude I went with, whose name is Mike. He's a great guy. I'm actually going to talk about the Masters more on putting on air specifically for Mike because he's a POA stan. But while we were there, I guess Mike, like we met through Putting on Air's podcast. He's a fan, and because of that, he's been dipping his toe into WellRED, which I appreciate. And so he's just kind of now getting caught up on like who Drew is, who Drew super hits for him. He likes our whole thing. But the first thing he said to me when we got together, he goes, so Drew, just I don't know how to say this, but does he get in a lot of fights? I was like, yeah. And so my first thought was like, oh, I know where this is coming from. And I said, are you referring to the couple times he almost got stabbed at the YMCA? And he goes, he almost got stabbed at the YMCA. Yeah. And I was like, well, what do you mean? Like, what other fights are you talking about? He's like, well, again, and I'm not trying to be mean because, dude, I love him. I love y'all. But like, it just seems like, at least in the episodes I've chosen to listen to, there's just always some shit with him. Like, there's just always some shit. Like, there's always some sort of animosity that seemingly is coming from another person to Drew. However, it happens so much.
Yeah, I feel like for the past few weeks now, I don't think he's had any, but I remember calling it out at one point, not that long ago, like 2 months or something like that. I said something. I was like, one of my favorite unplanned recurring segments that we've developed on this show is Drew's confrontation of the week or whatever, because for a while there, every single week he had a new story about some shit he got into with some. I remember one time it was a papaw in a Trader Joe's parking lot or whatever who started crying. He like made a papaw cry. Because the papaw thought he was going to fucking beat him to death or something like that. And Drew felt bad. And it definitely was always something. But
then anyway. It was a lady on a plane. There was something on a plane with a lady, which I can't remember. Yeah. And then we're also, we don't know half the stuff because it's not reported of how many times someone has probably called him out for farting in their general direction on a plane. Mm-hmm. But anyways, that really hit for me. But
so all right, man, I'm dumb. Yesterday was Monday. I've been all frazzled lately. I was thinking, because I've been, I've had not hitting shit going on.
Were you thinking we were doing Putting on Airs right now?
No, I thought that the Masters, even though yesterday was Monday, and I know that ain't how it works.
You thought it was Sunday.
Yeah, I thought you were at the final round, the big day or whatever. And I was like, damn, he must be super pumped about that.
No, that would have been amazing. But no, I was just at the practice round, which is great because it's a little bit more relaxed. You know what I mean? Like you can kind of, you can be like right up in the players' faces, not in a rude way, but like they'll come over and shit. And yeah, it was really cool. Hey, by the way, you might not want to do this, but I want to hear it again. Will you tell the joke that you texted to the thread earlier, the Salina boy joke?
So the Salina boy in question was Thompson. The only naturally, the only reason I said Salina boy instead of Thompson is because I feel like Mark is not as familiar with Thompson as you and Drew are. But yeah, Thompson told me a joke, and then I got a twist for you that I think will blow your mind when it comes to, because it certainly blew mine.
Okay.
And the joke is, what's the difference between a butthole and a refrigerator?
Yeah.
And it's the fridge don't fart when you pull the meat out. Which just classic redneck humor. Thompson is like a contractor and he works construction and does trim in these big fancy houses and stuff in Tennessee. And like, so he's on job sites a lot. So like, where do you think he heard that?
Oh, wow. Well, I mean, first off, I have to consider the fact now that it's coming from Thompson. When you said Salina boy, I get why you said it now, but when you said Salina boy, I was like, it can't be Thompson. Otherwise he would say that.
Thompson,
so I was thinking it was coming from like Key or Kobe or like some dude that because I know that you went to a funeral this weekend and therefore saw a bunch of Salina boys that you ain't seen in a long time. So I'm like, it might be that sheep fucker he worked with on the side of the road. Like
that guy was a Salina man, fucking a cow fucker, by the way. Get it right.
My bad.
No, dude, that motherfucker was like 70 in 2004 and had been fucking cows his whole life. He surely ain't still alive.
Might be the secret to life, Trae.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
You know what I mean?
Fountain of youth up a cow's butt.
Okay.
But anyway.
So anyways, I just assumed it was one of them. Where Thompson heard that from? Well, by the phrasing of your question, Trae, I know that it can't be Raven, You know, it can't be something I would expect. So I'm going to say Bill Nye the Science Guy on a podcast.
So it's equally discordant, in my opinion. I was like, he was like, yeah, when I heard that British lady's voice tell that joke, like it was wild or
Mary
something like that. And I was like, nah, he don't know who the British lady was. I'm just saying, I've never, to me, and of course, you got to consider the sort. He said that, and I was like, dude, I would have bet everything I own that you heard that from a redneck at the job site. And he was like, well, a redneck at the job site showed me the video of the British woman telling the joke. And so I was like, so he was like, that kind of counts. But like, I don't know. It just seemed like the most redneck ass like joke you could imagine. And then what's the polar opposite of a redneck is a British woman.
Yeah.
Like it caught me off guard.
Me too, because
that.
Like I
and
know,
I actually didn't even ask him if he knew what the lady's name was. I should have asked him. I don't know if it's like a famous British comedian or just some woman. I don't know.
This might be an example of like recency bias, considering like the way you set it up was a Salina boy told me, and then I heard it from you. But like, I feel like if I had just read that on a piece of paper, I would have immediately known that it came from a Salina boy or something.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like that, because like that is like when you come down to redneck humor, obviously it's, you know, let's not paint with too broad of a brush here. It can be, you know, as we prove, there can be nuance to redneck humor, but most of the time it involves a pussy, a butthole, and something stinking. Like those are like the three.
Maybe a dog, you know.
Dog, yeah. Those are some tent poles or pillars of like all redneck old boy humor, and that's got it all. Meat.
Well, and then there's a whole other genre that you know we'll not partake in. That also
on this podcast at least. Yeah, yeah.
It's either dick and butt stuff or it's just hardcore racism.
I heard
racist jokes. That's the two main genres of redneck humor, I feel.
I heard one the other day. This is the opposite of redneck humor because it's blasphemous, which really hit for me. I want to see if this joke hits for you as hard as it hit for me. Maybe you've heard it before. And this was an Easter joke, which is why I recently heard it. So Jesus is up on the cross, right? And he's sitting there dying, don't hit, crown of thorns, all that. And out in the group, there's all his disciples, Peter among them. And Jesus starts crying out, Peter, Peter, come hither, I need you. And so Peter's like, oh, my Lord, I must go to my Lord. Well, runs up, the Roman guards get him and they're like, you can't be doing this. And he tries to fight anyways. So they cut one of his arms off and he's just sitting there half a stump, you know, and he gets back. And 5 minutes later, Jesus cries out, Peter, Peter, come hither, I need you. And he's just like, I don't care what I have to go through. I must get to my Lord. So he runs up, same exact thing. The Roman soldier's like, I fucking told you, dude. They cut off his other arm. So now he's just bottoms, you know, and he's back there. Jesus finally, one last time, Peter, 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 come hither. I need you. And Peter's like, I don't give a shit if I have arms. They can take my feet. I must get to my Lord right now. He goes up. He tries to fight the Roman guards. The one Roman guard goes, you know what? Hell, what more can we do to the guy? Let him go talk to Jesus. So he goes up, he's sweating, he's bleeding, he's on the verge of passing out. And he goes, Jesus, my Lord, what is it? And he goes, hey, Peter, I can see your house from up here. Isn't that great?
Yeah, that's for me.
Yeah, that's it for me.
They said, I heard Patrice O'Neal say once that the hardest he had ever laughed at anything in his life was him and Rich Voss were standing outside the Comedy Cellar or something. And there was some Asian guy who worked at some Asian restaurant in the neighborhood who like was carrying a big stack of boxes of presumably, you know, squids and stuff. I don't know, fucking chopsticks and octopus, but like, you know, Asian restaurant supplies.
Yeah.
Big stack of boxes, like leaned back like this, you know, like struggling with it, walking down the sidewalk in front of the Comedy Cellar. And Rich Voss apparently was like, hey, excuse me, hey. And the guy like stopped. He's like, you got the time? And the dude like, and the dude was like, fuck. But he like, you know, like fuck, like tried to struggle to twist his arm to look at his watch or whatever. And then, and that was it. That was the whole thing. And, but anyway, Patrice O'Neal said that was like the hardest he'd ever laughed because it's just, you know,
situational. So, that's so funny. It reminds me of
unnecessary.
That reminds me of that time when Don Rickles was eating with Frank Sinatra and like Frank's whole crew. And I
Yeah.
think something had happened and Frank was pissed off about a contract or something. And Frank just loses it. He's cussing in the restaurant, motherfuck this, motherfuck that. And it's just going crazy. And everybody is terrified, except Don Rickles is just sitting there patiently cutting up his steak or whatever. And Frank Sinatra at one point throws a glass ketchup bottle against the wall. It shatters everywhere. And he keeps screaming. Everybody's scared, and it kind of quiets down. And Don Rickles looks up and go, "Hey, Frank, can you pass the ketchup?"
Yeah, my favorite Don Rickles Frank Sinatra restaurant story, which I know you know, is Don Rickles went on a date with a lady, and Frank Sinatra was going to be at the same place or whatever, and he was like, "Hey, you know, she's a big fan. I don't think she really believes we're friends or whatever. It's like, you know, if you could just like stop by and say, 'Hey, Don, what's going on?' It would, you know, make me look like I hit in this woman's eyes. It would
Yeah.
impress her or whatever." And Frank was like, "Sure, Don, anything for you, whatever." And so Rickles is sitting there with the girl, and then Frank Sinatra walks up and he's like, "Hey, Donnie, how you doing?" He's like, "Jesus Christ, Frank, can't you see I'm eating here?" he's like, "What the hell's wrong with you?"
It's so good.
It's so funny.
So good.
Oh man.
Man, I guess that old boy joke got me missing just jokes, like jokes. You know what I mean? Fucking
Yeah.
dying breed.
Yeah. Speaking of old boys, one thing that I had wanted to ask both of y'all about, but Drew ain't here, but I had a realization this weekend that like, you know, so the two funerals I went to, one was my main ma. She was 85. She had dementia. You know, it was like, we did not know until it was happening that it was about to happen, but at the same time, it's not like it was some huge shock either. You know what I'm saying? Like, it wasn't like she had been. Thank you for that. Really sets the mood. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The other funeral I went to was a friend of mine who was only 41 years old. And at that one, I was thinking about how, like, I don't remember where I heard it, but there's something about like, there's like 3 different kinds of friends a person generally makes in their life. And it's like, they have real names and stuff for it. This is some kind of like social theory, but I can't remember the actual terminology, but it's basically like dudes you grew up with, you know, like lifelong for like childhood friends,
brothers,
you know,
basically.
and those are wild because I think we all know that a lot of times you get older and realize that like
this person don't really hit for me.
Some of those dudes, if you met each other as adults, you would not hit for each other.
But it don't matter.
But you grew up together, so you're boys, and it's a weird kind of thing. And then the other two groups are like, you know, friends you make later in life, and they fall into 2 categories: friends that you make for a while, like in passing, you know, like, you know, buddies I had in Knoxville that I haven't really talked to since I left or whatever. And it's like, it feels weird sometimes, but that shit just happens, you know,
can't help it.
And then the third one is friends that you meet along the way who like stick around, who like, you know, stay your friends forever, or, you know, at least for a long time.
Like me?
Yes, like you.
Okay.
And
you were about to piss me off.
No, of course, like you.
Okay.
And I'm saying, here's the realization I had, and I want to ask if this is the same, if the same is true for you. Cause I mean, it's not that it doesn't make sense, birds of a feather and all that, but
how none of them are black.
It's never, zero. Anyway, I'd never explicitly thought about it this way, but like the ones who fall in that category for me are like you, Drew, my buddy Charles, you know, Charles, Jared, Seth, Bryce, and I mean, I guess that, and then, you know, DJ,
Irvine be a guy like that.
Okay. Well, see, Irvine is, he's the only hole in my theory. Not a theory. The thing I noticed, every single one of those other dudes. Oh, Mark.
Yeah, right.
Not Matt, producer Matt,
right.
Mark, Matt, everyone I've named so far, except for Irvine, every one of those dudes is from a small ass town, and most of them in the South. And then producer Matt's from fucking rural ass South Dakota, which definitely counts. Everybody else is from the rural South. They're not from like Nashville or, you know, Memphis or Chandler or, you know, cities. None of them are from cities. And I'd never realized that before but Irvine, he's from a big affluent suburb of Columbus, Ohio. So I feel like the one exception to the rule.
Not like a person that fits that description though.
And like Katie, you know, my wife is from, she's from a tiny ass town. It's like,
No, that makes sense.
It does make sense. It makes sense when you think about it. It's like, because, you relate to each other. You
Of
understand what
course.
it's like. Anytime I meet somebody, especially now that I'm removed from the rural South, do you know what I mean? Like when I
Yeah.
meet someone elsewhere who, like meeting Drew in Knoxville or then you and finding out from both of your cases that you were from some tiny ass little town, immediately I was like,
Boom.
it made you hit for me more or
Right.
whatever. Cause I knew that we had like shared experiences and stuff, but I just hadn't never really thought about it until this weekend that like it's universally true across the
Yeah.
board for me. Like every
I
friend I've ever
mean,
made that stuck, like Bryce too. Bryce is from, I think it's called Rogersville or Robertsville or something, North Carolina. It's kind
yeah.
of near Boone up in the mountains, but his actual hometown is fucking tiny. It's a nowhere place. And like, I went to Jared's hometown this weekend because it was his brother that died. All right, rest in peace, my buddy Jason, who was a wonderful dude. But they're from Camden, Tennessee, which I've never been there before, never had any call to. It's over west of Nashville, and it's fucking, middle of nowhere, redneck ass town or whatever. And
I
it's
mean,
just
dude, now that you're
like, do
saying
you
this,
have like,
I
what
was
about your list?
well, while you were saying, I was like trying because a lot of those are firmly on my list, and I was sitting here trying to think if I have any, and I'm missing something, but like I think about like Conrad fits into that
Oh,
category
there's
for
another
me.
one. I have another exception.
Okay,
Tushar from Huntsville. And
yeah,
he's definitely one of my boys, but
okay, too short. Yeah, you're right. Huntsville is a bigger city. Yeah, but
yeah,
but Conrad's not from Huntsville. Like he is from a smaller, teeny tiny town, and he moved to Huntsville. Same
yeah.
thing with Cassio. Like both, like I was putting them in the third camp because of that reason. Because like, yeah, again, they live in Huntsville, but like one of the things we bond on is that they're not from there. They're from a teeny tiny shit fuck part of Alabama and moved there. And like, yeah, dude, across the board it makes I think that's true. Again, with a couple exceptions, but like those are kind of the exceptions that prove the rule in this case. Like they stand out because, and yeah, I mean, I guess the logic makes perfect sense. It's easier to relate to somebody in that sense, but like that's wild. I never thought about that.
Also, I would argue that Tushar, and I don't know how he would feel about this, but I would argue that like an Indian dude from
Yeah.
Alabama, even though it's Huntsville, it's a city and not a tiny town, but an Indian guy from
Yes.
Alabama is kind of equivalent to like a white guy from a small town in terms of being different from like
Yes.
he is he is as much closer to me in my experience than like an Indian guy from New York
Yes, of
than
course.
like a white guy who grew up in Nashville, like
Of
or
course.
Franklin or something like that. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, for
Like
sure, dude.
I don't know if that makes sense to
It
people listening, but
it might not to them,
it
but
makes sense in my head
it
though.
makes sense to me too, because
Yeah.
we butt of butt, but like, but yeah, man, like I think that's pretty well 100% true for me. And also no women, you
Oh
know.
no,
Yeah, that
no. Well, dude, listen. Oh man, I don't know. She don't listen to this podcast. She'd probably be mad at me for putting this out there, but like Katie is like she's just insanely fucking jealous. Cause and I find it to be kind of a small town thing or whatever. But
Mhm.
I've tried to tell her, it's like, Katie, you gonna get me into some like Mike Pence type shit. You know what I
Right.
mean? Where it's like he's not allowed to be in the same room as a woman without
Yeah.
mother's permission or whatever. It's like you
Yeah.
fucking drifting towards that territory. Like you need to fucking chill out. But yeah, I can't have no woman friends. She gets all fucking weird about it. I
Yeah.
mean, I don't know. That the thing is, that used to not be true at all. It's only when I started hitting,
Right.
like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
like when I
The
worked at the
jealousy.
when I worked at the DOE, there was Doobie, Talia, Casey. I had a bunch of girl friends, and Katie, loved them all, and it was totally fine. But now, post hit, for some reason, she's always weird about it.
Well, I was joking kind of because I actually do have several girlfriends, and ironically, both from small towns. And they're people that I've met that were adjacent to the industry that we're in, which is how we met. And then like we became friends. But Amber don't get that way. It's either it and two of these both could be very true. It's either that Amber truly don't get that way, or she pays so little attention to
Yeah,
what I'm doing
right.
that it doesn't register with her that I am communicating. Because my thing is like, and this is a weird tick of mine, maybe, but like anytime I communicate with one of these women who are my friends, I actually and I don't know if it's subconscious or not, I make an effort to like point out to Amber, like, oh, I just talked to so and so. Because in my brain, I'm like, there's a need for me to be transparent when I'm talking to a woman. You know what I mean? Like, because if I don't, it seems like I'm hiding something from her, even though it shouldn't matter. Do you get what I'm fucking saying?
Give me a little bit of that again. Sorry, I thought somebody was pulling into my
Oh, you're
driveway at my
fine.
old house, but they were turning around, so I'm fine.
You're fine. You're fine. I was saying that, like, whenever I communicate with one of my female friends, I usually immediately tell Amber that I'm doing it, but not in a like, just to let you know, I'm having it. It's just like, oh, look at what Aria said. You know what I mean? Like, I always do that because I feel like maybe subconsciously I'm like, if I don't tell Amber that I'm talking to this girl, it seems like I'm hiding it from her, even though she wouldn't find it. It's fucked up. It's like a weird, I don't know.
Yeah, no, I know. Yeah, it is weird, but it's like, you know, fuck you gonna do. So the rapture was supposed to happen yesterday and it didn't. That's
Well,
disappointing.
either that or nobody went.
Right. Yeah, that's a possibility. But I was thinking, if people don't know what we're talking about, the solar eclipse. Did you get to see like a total solar eclipse where you were at?
Yep, we got to, and what's really
I'm
cool
so
is
jealous. We
I
didn't in California, it didn't go total. It was, and I didn't know that until it was happening, and I got
yeah.
so disappointed.
I also got a really cool piece of Masters memorabilia that will never be made again. And they only gave it out to people who were there Monday. Was when you walked in, they gave you official Masters Eclipse glasses so that you could look at them, which I know that's not cool to most people. And they're probably 50 cents, but like, it's pretty cool. Cause like, it's, this part of the world or whatever, we might not see it again in our lifetime or whatever the fuck. And the
Yeah,
Masters
the
might
next
not.
one isn't going to be till 2044, I reckon. And
Right.
also, like,
I'll be dead.
I don't know. I didn't know that. When everybody was talking about it, I thought the whole U.S. was going to be privy to a total solar
Oh,
eclipse.
I did too
I
until
didn't
you
know it
said
was.
that.
I didn't know it was just a little sliver of the U.S., which
Yeah.
was basically the South and then up the
Yeah.
eastern seaboard or whatever. I didn't know that. Maybe hopefully the next one will be where I'm at, but if it's not, I'm probably going to take a trip to see it because I've never seen like a full blown eclipse before. And then if the next one until 2044, I mean that'll probably be the last chance I get. I mean I'll be fucking 58, and if it's another 20 something years after that,
Yeah, dude.
But
It was actually a very like cool experience for a lot of reasons. Cause number one, like you already can't have cell phones when you're on the grounds at Augusta. So like the whole day I had been noticing and commenting on how like, look, it is kind of stressful because I have a kid and I really do like to get updates on how my son's doing throughout the day. However, it has been nice to walk around where everyone is totally paying attention to everything. Like people were moving quicker because nobody was staring down at their phone. People were actually watching the golf because if you wanted to take, like, I brought a DSLR camera in with me because I wanted to fucking take pictures, but like, you're not as quick to pick up that thing and start doing shit as you are with a phone. So like everyone's paying attention. Everybody's either watching golf or having, respectable volumed conversations with their friends. And then you add to the fact that at one moment, all of us were basically in complete silence and serenity with these glasses on, looking up at the sun and the moon. And it was just a very like, I don't know. It just felt like what humanity either maybe used to be or what I would like it to be. It was pretty fucking sweet,
yeah, no, that's super hits. But a lot of people thought that the eclipse was, the harbinger of the apocalypse, like that the rapture was going to happen during this eclipse. Like Christians got that in their head. Not all Christians, only the craziest of the Christians, but
Only
apparently
80%.
I guess. I mean, I do wonder what percentage of them were. I mean, dude, I saw a clip, a reel, an IG reel of the eclipse, just like video footage of the eclipse, and I went to the comments, and like a bunch of the top comments were from Christians being like, yeah, whatever, talking all apocalyptically about the eclipse. Dude, Instagram is so wild. Like,
it is, dude.
I don't want to get too diverted. We can come back to that in a little bit. But apparently, the rapture, like, I guess who else? Alex Jones discovered or this is what I read. I don't know how true this is, but he put it together that that the eclipse, I said the total eclipse covered like a sliver of the US, not the whole US, which I didn't know till yesterday, but it only covers a sliver, the places that could actually see a total eclipse. That sliver covered an area that included 8 different towns named Nineveh,
Nineveh, which is
is
a
it
biblical.
right? And I didn't know that. I never heard of
Yeah.
fucking Nineveh, but yeah, Nineveh is some biblical something, and there's 9 towns in America named Nineveh, and they were all going to be privy to this total solar eclipse, and so that was some sort of prophecy or something, and
I
it
think
meant
that's where Jesus did the Sermon on the Mount. I could be wrong, but I know Nineveh is like a Bible thing.
right. And so that's why the rapture is going to happen, and of course, no. But I was
It's
thinking,
weird because America is very, prevalent in the Bible.
right,
You would
yeah.
think.
Yeah, Jesus, the first American, famously. I've always said it. But I was thinking, I made one of my rant videos about the whole rapture thing not happening. And I was thinking while putting that together, like, let's say no bullshit that like the rapture did happen. And the version of it that happened was the one these people expected, meaning like the most lunatic-y Christian motherfuckers in this country
Mm-hmm.
are the ones who get raptured and
Fire.
the only ones. Everyone else is stuck down here. How would you react to that after? I think if that
I'd
really did
freak out
happen,
for a
we would
while.
freak the fuck out at first
Yeah.
because holy shit, that's an insane thing. But once it's settled in, what do you think your, takeaway or whatever would be?
I've actually thought about this. I've thought about this for a long time because, and I know Drew's mentioned this a little bit, like and I hate to just throw the word trauma around, but like the semi-religious trauma that I feel like I've experienced in my life and how much it was beat into me as a child really took a long time to get over, even after I felt old enough and smart enough to realize, hey, this is some hocus pocus Grimm's fairy tale bullshit. But when you've been conditioned a certain way your whole life, it's still kind of in the back of your mind. So like I would every now and then get scared, like, what if they were right and what if I'm wrong? Because like I was just so close to it. You know what I mean? So because of that, every time somebody brings up the rapture, I was like, God damn, if that really happened, like what the fuck would I think? But my thing is, this is per my understanding of at least in the Southern Baptist faith, what happens during the rapture. And I'm going to lay that out for you so I can explain how I would feel about it. But I'll give you this hint: it would hit for me.
Right. Yeah, right. Well, see, that's what I was thinking
Yeah.
too. That's what I landed on. I was like, even knowing that meant that those motherfuckers had been right, I still think it would ultimately hit for me.
Because here's why. So if the biblical rapture actually happens, now granted, in the Bible, it's not just like, oh, everyone disappears and everyone's left and we just go on about our day. There's also some like chaotic shit, which I mean, it's
Right.
chaos induced by, we all saw Endgame. You know what I mean? Like that's what would happen. Society would be like, what the fuck is going on? And you'd have a large portion of the people who, according to the Bible and scholars and stuff, like they still wouldn't be convinced that's what it was. You know what I mean? But me, having grown up in that faith, if I saw it actually happen, I would go, my first thought would be like, okay, it is real. And therefore, so in the Bible, it's like the rapture happens, and then there are 7 years of tribulation, right? Where the Antichrist rules the world. Now, a lot of people always go like, well, yeah, he's already here, Joe Biden. Let me explain to all of you people the Christians that think you know so much about the Antichrist. The Antichrist will not have a 34% approval rating. Okay. The point of the Antichrist is that he hits for everyone. He hits for everyone, and he fools people easily into like Tom Hanks is a way better candidate for the Antichrist. Dolly Parton might be the best candidate for the Antichrist, except for the fact that it will absolutely not be a white fucking American. Okay.
Yeah.
It's going to be some bitch from over there. All right. So hell, Obama. Anyways, so there's the 7 years of tribulation in which God's people are called home. The Antichrist rules for 7 years. And then after those 7 years, the people who during those tribulations reluctantly gave their life to the Lord because they realized they had been wrong, the God and his army will come down to defeat the Antichrist and the devil. And those people have a second shot at it. So my point is, if I survive the rapture, I get to live 7 years without all of those people, and then at the last second go, you know what, Jesus, you right, I was wrong, and then I get to go to heaven after a nice fucking 7-year vacation. It would rule.
Now here, this is classic me because I'm so fucking Bible dumb. I never even thought about all that other shit you just said.
Yeah.
Like in my head, it was just they all go up there and we're all stuck down here. I didn't think about Antichrist, tribulations, revelations, none of that shit. Obviously, that stuff wouldn't hit. I mean,
No.
you know, things are getting kind of revelation-y down here
Yeah.
anyway with fucking climate change and
Well,
stuff.
that's why some people
is
think
their
it's going
fault.
to happen.
Yeah.
You know, because like the signs are there before the rapture, but that's why, but they've been, bro, there were people in 1600 saying the end times are coming. There were people in 1700 saying it. There will be people in 2400 saying it. And I want to know, at what point do these motherfuckers who are constantly making this insane claims, when do they get held accountable for how wrong they've been every time? Also, by the way,
Yeah, right.
the Lord says in the Bible that he will come like a thief in the night, and no man will know the time, date, or place. So if you can predict the rapture, it definitely won't happen when you predict it.
Well, here's the main thing that I was thinking about. And in my little, like, you know, the YouTube videos, my YouTube videos are sponsored these days. Thank you to my sponsors,
Sell out.
which means there are two parts. The first part of the YouTube video is the same thing I put on Twitter, TikTok, Instagram, and everything else. And then there's a postscript after the ad read that is only on YouTube. So in the YouTube video about the rapture, I started talking about all this, and again, didn't even bring up no Antichrist shit or nothing. But I was just thinking, like, to me, you know, you said like you get 7 years without those people. I talked about that and how that would hit for me. Like we could actually get some shit done, you know, maybe without them around here gumming up the works.
The housing crisis would be solved immediately.
So much shit would be solved, I feel like,
Yeah.
if all those people just apparated. But also, like the implications, then you said you're like, I get 7 years without those people, then I could still go to heaven anyway. But I'm saying, to me, the implication of like Marjorie Taylor Greene getting raptured and like her ilk getting raptured is that God super don't hit.
Of course not.
Heaven cannot be cool. Like,
Okay.
there's no way that what they're doing up there hits or that he hits or anything. Conversely, I feel like the devil must have been a pretty all right dude or figures some shit or like that.
Right.
If God is down with Marjorie Taylor Greene and the devil was like, this motherfucker don't hit and like rebelled or whatever, then I think the devil might be a pretty rad guy. So I'm saying, I still think even if all that turned out to be real, you can make an argument that we're all right. I'm not talking about the
eternal damnation and hellfire, because again, if they are right, then they're right about all of it. Then after, when you go to hell, it's not like the devil, he might be like, all right, and there might be cooler people down there, but like you're still getting bone sawed through the knee every day and butt fucked by demons. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but see, that could be propaganda. Do you know what I'm saying?
True. Yeah,
like I'm saying that's just what big God wants you to think. Like if God, again, dude, if God is like MAGA-y, look at what they think and say about us, about me and you. Like what Marjorie Taylor Greene, she thinks we eat babies, bro. Like they think we're evil butt fucking baby killers, right? Like that's what they think, and that's what they tell people, and that's what they tell each other, and they believe. So like, of course, God and them would say all that shit about the devil, and trying to trick. You know what I'm saying? Like trying to trick people. Of course, they're going to say that hell don't hit, the devil don't hit, none of that. But if God fucks Marjorie Taylor Greene, I know he don't hit.
Right.
So like, I'm saying, I don't think that's necessarily the case. It don't, you know.
And now that you're saying this about how that might be propaganda, I'm actually sitting here thinking, like, you do know that you probably know this, even though you don't fuck with the Bible, because I'm certain it's been in a Megadeth song. But like, Satan was an angel, like one of God's, you know, supreme hitters up there. And I could be wrong. I'm not going to look it up. But I'm pretty sure that the reason that he got kicked out of heaven was for attempting to express free will.
Right.
like, you know what I mean? They're like, get this fucking guy out of here. He's trying to think for himself. So yeah, if God kicked him out for being a free thinker trying to express free will, then when he kicks him out, of course he's going to go on a smear campaign about how much
You
this
said-
guy
You said that like it was a like
Bagel.
he's working for Philadelphia cream cheese. Yeah. You see the new Philadelphia cream cheese ad campaign?
smear
It's a
campaign.
smear campaign. Yeah, right. Yeah. You know, you get a smear on a yeah.
I just think it's a Hitler way to say.
Yeah.
But anyways, like, yeah, you're right. I guess so. Like, I was operating under the assumption that, like, well, if the rapture happens, then that means they were right about all of it. But it doesn't mean that in that book there couldn't have been lies and propaganda and mud thrown to make the devil look like he don't hit, so everyone would turn out to be like Marjorie Taylor Greene. So no, I'm with you.
Yeah.
No, I'm 100% with you. But I'll say this: you mentioned something earlier, and I wanted to go back to it. Because you said, like, I know this isn't all Christians, it's just the mega lunatic-y ones of it. And I want to believe that too. And maybe something has shifted now, but a similar thing like this has, well, people have been calling for the rapture once a year, every year for the fucking beginning of time. But a similar thing like this happened in our lifetimes, Y2K, right?
Oh, yeah.
Y2K happened, and I'm sure it was, I know that you didn't grow up God, but you still in a country town. I know that.
Well, what's
you
wild about
experienced
that
this.
one? That yeah, I did, but my recollection of that, because I didn't grow up God, was that like there was I feel like there was a whole other element of Y2K that was secular in nature, meaning like that.
It was.
I'm sure the religious people were interpreting it religiously,
Yes.
and that's what you were exposed to.
Yeah.
But the way I remember it was people were just like,
The economy's going to shut down.
it's a technical apocalypse.
Yeah.
Like the system is going to crash and it's going to
Yeah.
be pandemonium and all that. And then I'm sure the Bible people were like, yeah, well, that's when rapture happens
Yes.
or whatever. But yeah,
But
I remember all that. I was 13 or whatever. I was
Yeah.
freaked out.
Well, but
I was worried.
me too, but
All
I
the
was
computers just going to explode. All the lights go out. I didn't fucking know.
Well, I agree with you, and I was freaked out for that reason, plus still a little hanging on from the religious thing because it wasn't so. All the people in my church, at least, and the surrounding churches, because my church is very similar to the surrounding churches, and I talked to other people from the surrounding churches, they were all convinced that it was going to be the rapture, right? But like, my point is that it wasn't a fringe thought. It wasn't
Right.
like, it was the mainstream, because, like, dude, some of the people at my church were lunatics. Obviously some of the people are these like super fringy lunatics, but I'm talking like very normal people, not tinfoil hat Christians, very normal Christians were convinced it was going to happen. So I don't necessarily buy I know it wasn't, I mean, of course it wasn't all of them, but I think the percentages may be larger than you think, because they were all, now, by the way, they weren't freaking out though, because
I know,
they
right.
wanted
It'll
it to
hit
happen.
for them. Yeah,
It'll
right,
hit
yeah.
for them. I feel
Yeah, I
this
talked about
time,
that
though,
too. That's so alarming to
yeah.
like what I said. I was like, knowing that these people like are thrilled at the prospect of the world ending, and then we're supposed to like work out a budget with them. You know
Right.
what I mean? Like, or like education policy and shit. Like, of course it never works.
Well,
That's
dude,
insane.
It
Like,
also makes sense to a lot of it really puts into perspective a lot of their thoughts on like global warming and healthcare and all this stuff, because they're not banking on living to old age. Like,
right.
they're in their, like,
Yeah,
these 450-pound Christians are like, why would I lose weight and work out and be healthy? Because God's coming back soon. And why would we care about the planet? Because God's coming back soon. And why would we put anything there? God's going to come back soon. We don't have to give a fuck what the world's going to look like in 5,000 years. It won't be here in 5,000 years. And also, it's only been here for 6. Suck on that, you fuckers.
Yeah. Yeah, baby. Hey, so you wanted to talk about Morgan Wallen? I
Yeah, I
know
didn't
that. I mean, I don't know much about it. I know that he got arrested for throwing a chair off a roof of a bar in Nashville, right? Isn't
That's
that
what I know.
happened?
It was at
Me,
Eric.
me too. I thought
was
maybe
at
you knew
Eric.
more about.
Well, I had a
about it.
take on it. It was at
Okay.
Eric Church's bar, which is the Chiefs. I had heard like there's a new Chiefs bar opening in Nashville, and it could be, but I doubt it. In my brain, I thought that meant like, you know how you go to New York and there's like a Vols bar or a Dogs bar? You know, like,
Yeah,
like
but
this is the bar where Bulldogs go to. I thought it was like that for the Chiefs, so I didn't realize it was Eric Church and this whole big ordeal.
First of all, if there was ever a city that would be accommodating to entire other opposing fucking fan bases and shit, it would be Nashville for sure.
Right.
But I've been to like a Vols bar in Manhattan. It was fucking awesome.
Which
I
just
loved it.
means that they hit for the owner.
Typically, all that is if you're in there when it's not game day,
Yeah.
it's an Irish pub or whatever the hell it is.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm saying, and then on game day, they put up a bunch of orange stuff, and every Vol fan in Manhattan comes to that same bar, and it's like a known thing. So, it's not like a branded, they wouldn't call it Chiefs. Like there may be a Chiefs bar where Chiefs fans in Nashville go to watch the Chiefs, but it wouldn't be called Chiefs.
I know that's how those type of bars start, but like I guess the reason it just, and by the way, I didn't ruminate on this. Like I just saw Chiefs bar and I was just like, oh, whatever. The reason it would semi make sense for them to actually do a branded one like that is because the Chiefs are the most popular team in the NFL. Travis Kelce is now a massive superstar and dating Taylor Swift, who lives in Nashville and all this shit. So that's just what I didn't even think about it. But then they said Eric Church, and I was like, oh, that's just he's calling it Chiefs Bar. But anyways, so Morgan Wallen, apparently I think it was the open night, and he's up on top and he drunkenly throws a chair off the roof. Now I couldn't read anything in there about if he was trying to hit someone, and I don't think he was because it landed next to two cops. And surely he wouldn't have tried to hit cops. You know what I mean? Because that fucks him on the base big time.
Now, dude, that's just a thing people do for some reason. Yeah. Sometimes Antonio Brown did that once and about killed a 4-year-old. He didn't hit the 4-year-old was fine, but it was like 6 inches away from smushing a 4-year-old. And that was just the beginning of his lunacy. But I also heard Kid Rock threw a guitar off the roof of a bar in Nashville years ago. And I heard apparently like, it was like, they got all these locals and cover bands and stuff that play at all those bars down there. And it was some local musician guy just up there, doing the bar thing, passing the hat around or whatever, but hitting at one of these downtown bars. Everybody that plays in those places is pretty fucking good.
They have to be.
Yeah, right. And
it's like how all food in Manhattan is good, because it's like if it's not, get the fuck out.
Yeah, but they're not famous. They don't hit outside of that. They're just really good musicians. It was one of those type dudes. He's playing at some bar. Kid Rock comes in and like sits in with him. And so it's like a cool moment ostensibly. But then at the end of it, Kid Rock's just like, woo, hell yeah. And just takes the guy's guitar and throws it off the roof and explodes it and just leaves. Yeah. Allegedly. I read that happened. I don't know. But anyway, I don't know. It's a thing people do. You always used to hear about rock bands throwing shit out of hotel windows and stuff. I've never had the urge to. That's not true.
That's actually
I've thrown stuff off of things before, but
you just reminded me.
Not since I was a teenager.
Right. Well, yeah, me either. You just reminded me of my new favorite Joe Walsh quote, which was they asked him about AI replacing rock and roll music, and he said, "Yeah, I'd like to see AI throw a TV out of a fucking hotel window."
Yeah.
Anyways, but okay, here was my half-brained take on it, because I'm at a place in my life now, meaning I'm, about to be 37 years old. I have a kid. I'm a more mature person, whatever that looks like for somebody who is the consummate toddler that I am. I guess there was a time in my life where like that sort of behavior, I would have been like, fuck yeah, that's rock and roll, whatever. Now I'm like, dude, you're 30. What the fuck are you doing? But at the same time, I'm like, you know what? People have been wanting outlaw country to come back, and that's what that shit looks like, because you can't be mad at him for doing that and then praise Johnny Paycheck for shooting a guy in the head at a fucking bar.
No,
you know what I mean?
That's true. But me and you, though, I mean, we watched Tales from the Tour Bus like together and all that. And I remember one of our main takes while watching, if y'all don't know, it's a Mike Judge produced animated series that it's all these stories from the legends.
One of the best shows ever.
Old country music. And then the second season is Funk Artist, and it hits too. But the country one, of course, for me and Joe's just like top shelf shit. Highly recommend if you haven't seen it. But anyway, I remember we were watching that. We kept saying, we're like, dude, this is so funny and so entertaining or whatever. But also,
fuck these guys.
It is good that people are not like this anymore. Because like this is fucking ridiculous. Like those dudes, they all hit real hard musically and stuff, but they were fucking lunatics, dog.
I agree with you.
Like you can't be like that.
I agree with you.
An outlaw country, whatever you want to call it or whatever. But it's just, I mean,
no, I don't mean
way to be.
I don't mean us, like, because I do feel that way, and I know that we feel that way. But I'm talking about like any of the people who have been talking, like, because they're still there. Dude, Morgan Wallen supremely hits for a lot of people. However, there is a great many of people who maybe they listen to Morgan Wallen, but they still lament the fact that the Outlaws aren't here anymore. And those people will probably be going like, this pussy, you know, throwing a temper tantrum and throwing a chair, you know, off a fucking roof. Waylon would never do that. Johnny Pate would never do that. And it's like, they would have done something worse.
Like, yeah, you're definitely right about that part. And also, like you already alluded to, those same people you're talking about, the fact that he almost hit a cop is totally going to make them be like, well, fucking, looks like he don't back the blue. Look how disrespectful this motherfucker. You got officers of the law trying to protect and serve right down there. He could have harmed one of them. They're just doing their job. Like that type of bullshit.
Whereas if Merle Haggard at one of his many union strikes that he was a part of, if back then he had have punched a cop who was trying to break up a protest, it would have hit so hard. Everybody.
I know. It's a goddamn shame what's happened. The whole rednecks and cops thing, you know, I've been saying it. I've been saying it for 10 damn years. Fucking.
And these people that we're talking about are examples of the first thing that you were talking about, the friends situation. They're in that first group for me because I know a lot of these people, and this type of behavior makes me want to fucking hate them, but I can't because we grew up together. You know what I mean? And I was thinking when you said that, like, when you describe that, and every time I think about that, because like sometimes I feel like super liberal, and I'm meaning this in the negative connotation, like liberals that are too far up their own ass for their own fucking good. It's like they can't comprehend loyalty to someone that you grew up with, like blind loyalty or whatever. They just assume like, no. As soon as someone who you grew up with and did all these things together, as soon as they disagree with one thing that doesn't fit our narrative, you have to cut them out of your life completely. Don't fucking answer the phone at 2 a.m. And I go back to the fucking ending of Justified, and when they say, why are you still friends with this person? I go, we dug coal together.
Yeah, right.
You know, like
that's one of the best endings in television history. It hits so
might
hard.
be the best, but you know what I'm saying?
So simple and lands so hard. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. It's like, you know, recently we were having like a text debate with some other, you know, friends of ours or whatever about Shane Gillis, and they were talking about how like Shane, and everybody loves his podcast. I'm sure it's fucking hilarious, but I haven't yet really listened to it much, but I'm sure it would hit.
Clips are great.
But, and I think Shane's awesome. And also I think that Shane gets a bad rap from those types of liberals you were talking about. I do not think that he is the guy that they think he is. And actually, I think that's true for both sides. The hardcore right wingers who think that he is their champion, I think they're wrong about him too. I don't think
everyone's wrong about him.
Yeah, right. That's what I think. Except for the people who just believe that he's super fucking
except for us. Yeah.
Except for us. Yeah, but there's a lot of people like us, I think,
there are,
who are just like, this guy's hilarious, and that's all that they care about. But anyway, you know, I mean, you know, fuck, I'll just say it. It was Mark. Mark started pulling all these articles and shit the way he do. And it was articles about how, you know, Shane Gillis, why does Shane Gillis keep platforming fucking these conspiracy theorists and Holocaust deniers and stuff like that? And you read into it, and it's like, it's his co-host who is his best friend in the world, right? And like, it's his co-host's brother, I think. And it's like, well, dude, I mean, you know, like I've got some friends and shit that I grew up with that any of our fans or listeners, whatever, would find them appalling.
Oh,
you
God.
know what I mean? And like, and their beliefs and the things they think and the thing they say. Yeah, Wade's a great example. And it's like, but you know, what do you want me to say? And I know it's the same thing with, you know, with Gillis and that dude. It's just like, you know, they're boys. Now, look, I don't put these people on my podcast, and that is different, but like, still, I'm saying I'm not going to crucify a guy for that because I know what it's like. And a lot of those liberals you're talking about with their heads up their asses, they have the privilege of not having to ever confront that type of reality because they're from fucking Seattle or whatever. And they don't have that. They don't have that buddy since they were 7 who now is a fucking lunatic or whatever. You know, they don't have to worry about it. It's easy for them to say, you know, so I don't know.
No, I mean, I hear you, dude. Cause like, yeah, I mean, I think Wade is a perfect example of like the we dug coal together comes to my brain because like me and that guy, he was there for my formative years of comedy, like when I started, and like we had our ups and downs, but he's a part of a time period that means so much to me. And he was a large part of a time period that means so much to me. And like, I'm not saying he don't upset me sometimes with the things that he thinks, but I'm not going to say fuck him forever, you know, because like, that's just not, And maybe we're coming from a place of privilege, like, oh, it's so nice because you're white men, you don't have to give up on these people because they're not threatening to you. Maybe that's true. It's just, I don't know, man. Like, I'll tell you this, those people haven't stopped being friends with me, even though they think I drink baby's blood. So it kind
Well,
of
that's
works
what,
both
dude.
ways.
That's the thing that infuriates me the most is I have had some guys over the
Well, me
years
too.
that have done that,
Yeah,
that
me
like
too.
immediately were like, you don't ever like literally won't talk.
Yeah.
Like I show up to a party, it's a guy I've known and drunk with and hung out with and shit for like ever since I was a teenager, and he literally like won't look me in the eye,
Yeah.
won't speak to me, won't shake my hand, won't do none of that. Just it's like, no, fuck you. You don't, and it kills me because it's like
You didn't
you
do that
know
to
how
him.
exactly. It's like you know how
Yeah.
easy it would be for me to do that to y'all, but I don't do that, you
Right.
know. And it's like, and I'm the snowflake. You know
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
I'm the overly sensitive snowflake. You're the one who's responding this way just because I don't agree with you. Like it fucking kills me. But most of them have not. But I heard from a lot of my buddies who are like that. This weekend, my grandma died, and like we still cool, and most of them were not like that. But I did have some guys who did do that, and that really to this day pisses me off to think about it. But
I had several also, but not near as many as I thought. And that
right,
was like what really surprised me. Cause like when like a couple times, you know, when we first started hitting, which the reason mainly that it pissed me off, and I know this is the same for you, is that like they were acting like all of a sudden something happened to me. Like
right,
I've turned
exact.
into
Yes,
something.
same thing.
And it's
Yep.
like, no, I mean, me and Kirby were talking on POA the other day, putting on airs. Y'all should listen to it. And I'm not sitting here propping up this as being a good premise or a good joke. Just the fact that I wrote it when I was 16. We were talking about Santa Claus, and I was like, yeah, I had this bit. I ended up stopping doing it because apparently everyone in the world also wrote it, which was it was me talking about Santa Claus and how he's clearly a classist asshole because all the
Yeah.
rich kids get shit and all, and you
I
know,
had you wrote that when you were 16?
yeah,
Because I had that bit in one of our Christmas shows like 5 years ago, and you didn't say shit. You must not have been listening,
I
or you didn't
wasn't
remember.
listening.
Yeah, I did. Yes, I've also
Yeah.
written that bit, but the difference is I wrote it as a 33-year-old,
Well, it's
10-year vet, and you wrote it at
well, wait,
16. So,
hold on.
uh,
Now I'm sitting here thinking, is that no? Because I stopped doing it like a long time ago. Because just maybe because I'd heard somebody else like bring it up. But no, when I don't remember you ever saying that. But any fucking way. Also, yours was definitely a good bit that was fleshed out and stuff. When I did it at 16, I probably just laid out the premise and that was it. And turns out I wasn't making it work, and so I stopped doing it. But that's not the fucking point. The point is that that's where my brain was at 16, and then flash forward 10 years, we hit and everybody's acting like that ain't where my brain was. You
I
know what
know.
I mean? And
Same
so,
exact thing for me. Yeah, it's
and
like
so
I've had
like,
so many. Y'all knew I didn't fuck with the Lord. I didn't go to church, and I told you it was stupid. You knew I had a gay uncle and all this shit, and I weren't racist and fucking all this other. Like I was always the fucking book reading queer or whatever.
right.
Always like, and y'all just used to kind of laugh it off. But you know, but now for some reason it's like an actual problem for some of these
So,
guys, and I don't understand that.
so anyways, it did piss me off when a couple dudes early on were like, I'm never talking to this guy again. But then when they did that, I just genuinely assumed like, well, this is how all of them will be, you know?
Yeah,
And it wasn't the case. Most of my friends who were friends of mine pre-hit are still my friends now. I'm certain that every now and then they talk shit about me behind their back, but guess what? I do the same to them. So glass houses, you know. Um, but like, oh, where was I going with this? Oh, and as soon as I found that out, that they are so repulsed by my belief system, but are still like, but we grew up together and we're friends. That was when I realized, well, I'm not giving up on them either. You know what I
right.
mean? Like I can't do that. We're
Yeah.
about to get a lot of hate for what we just said, and I apologize, but what are you
I don't
gonna
know.
do?
You think so? I mean, you might be right,
I
but
do, and I do think
I'm
some of
not
it,
so sure.
but I genuinely do think some of it will be warranted. I'm not going to sit here and be like, if you disagree with these opinions, you're just a fucking idiot. Because I do think that there is a little bit of privilege in what we're saying, in that, like, it's not going to ever be dangerous for me to keep being friends with these people. And it's like, well, yeah, you can still be friends with these people because their lunatic beliefs as don't actually affect you as a white man.
Well,
You know what I
dude,
mean?
listen. Well, I mean, their beliefs are still dangerous, but like,
I agree.
but if I, you know, uh, if one of these dudes we're talking about was like beating up gay people or
Yeah, yeah,
something
yeah,
like
yeah.
that, you know what I mean? Then like,
Way
wouldn't be
different.
like, well, I went to kindergarten with him. What are you going to do? Like, I wouldn't. That is different. I'm talking
Of
about
course
just
it is.
thinking crazy shit that don't hit for me. Like, you know, if I cut everybody out of my life that thought some crazy regressive shit coming from where I'm from,
We wouldn't be doing this
I
podcast.
just have y'all left. Like,
Yeah.
that's it. Y'all and fucking, you know,
You'd barely have us
LA
left.
comics. Yeah, right.
You know, because like every now and then one still slips through. You just don't say it. You text
right.
it to the fucking friend group and you put LOL at the end so everyone knows you don't actually believe it. It's just you doing a parody of what these people actually think, even though the thought organically entered your mind, meaning at some point you thought it, ironic or not. That's what you do.
That's what you do. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, listen, y'all go to TreCrowder.com and check out my upcoming tour dates. Seattle and Vancouver coming soon, next weekend. And after that, bunch of other places, Pittsburgh, Buffalo, all over the damn place. Florida, you know, shit. Go to TreCrowder.com. Check it out. Come see me. Hit it, Joe.
I would really also like to encourage everybody to check out our other podcast, Putting on Airs. I know many of you have, but some of you have probably been like, oh, I got too many podcasts on rotations. I'm going to stick with this one. I would like to encourage you to listen to it because it's really fucking funny. I think we literally get better every episode. This past week, because Trae was having a horrible week, my sister sat in. I think it was a great fucking episode. I think you'd love my sister. And also, please subscribe to our YouTube page over there, watchpoa.com. I think we got like 300 new subscribers last week, which was great. We'd like to see that keep going. Also, bonuscorey.com. That's my extra shit. Thank you all for listening to the WellRED Show. We love to stick around longer, but we got to go. Tune in next week. Thank you. God bless you. Good night and skew.
Putting on airs. We might not know much about history, we don't care. We gon' get drunk and we talk about yachts. We gon' get drunk and we gon' talk a lot. Dress real fancy, sit in our chairs, sip on our tea, putting on airs. We collected from our love of Downton Abbey. We collected, we found out we're both so fancy. Hey, what's the difference between rednecks and royal families? Only money, cause they both have sex with family. Ew. Putting on airs. What other rednecks to talk about foreign affairs? Laughing so hard that we end up falling out our chairs. Sir Trae, Sir Corey, oh what a pair. High class topics with a redneck flair. Oh yeah. Two rednecks but we're still fancy, putting on airs. We might not know much about history, we don't care. We gon' get drunk and we talk about yachts. We gon' get drunk and we gon' talk a lot. Dress real fancy, sit in our chairs, sip on our tea, putting on airs. Two rednecks but we're still fancy, putting on airs. We might not know much about history, we don't care. We gon' get drunk and we talk about yachts. We gon' get drunk and we gon' talk a lot. Dress real fancy, sit in our chairs, sip on our tea, putting on airs. Okay, it's Team Squirrel or Team Trae. Oh yeah, we keeping it basic. He thinks that the squirrels at Corey's mom's house are racist. And you know squirrels live in the same place for generations. So Trae, you better count your days and you better count your blessings. Cause all the squirrels that you ran over, that you think are nameless, faceless, their families are getting together and plotting on you from the attic and basement. So even though Corey is dumb, fat, and bald, he knows how to avoid drama, don't get squirrels involved. Two rednecks but we're still fancy, putting on airs. We might not know much about history, we don't care. We gon' get drunk and we talk about yachts. We gon' get drunk and we gon' talk a lot. Dress real fancy, sit in our chairs, sip on our tea, putting on airs. Two rednecks but we're still fancy, putting on airs. We might not know much about history, we don't care. We gon' get drunk and we talk about yachts. We gon' get drunk and we gon' talk a lot. Dress real fancy, sit in our chairs, sip on our tea, putting on airs.